Hello and welcome back to the MAGA Institute podcast. I'm Timothy Shea with my partner, Brooke McGowan. Brooke, I'm seeing on the screen that we've got a little bit of news to announce.
Right? Crazy week we've had over here in North Carolina. I have announced my intention to run for the North Carolina GOP State Party Chair. I announced it at Convention Day on March 1st, the very first convention for Convention Month of March. We have 100 counties in North Carolina, and I'm trying to get around to them. Obviously, I won't make it all because it's 4 weeks worth of 100 counties worth of conventions, but I do have some surrogates going out. I'm building up my county chairs now, and we have incredible momentum, very exciting times. I am loving the state of North Carolina, and I'm loving traversing across it. And last night was Wake County Convention, which is Raleigh, so one of the most populated counties in the state. They had almost 400 people in the room, about
Wow.
340 delegates. And I had a great response, even though the chairman, whom I am challenging, was also in the room. So it was a great night.
That's fantastic. And I can't think of anybody better for the state of North Carolina, the Tar Heel state, than you. I'm happy to give you MAGA Institute's total and complete certification.
Let me find my pen. Where's my little MAGA Institute? I have a button around here somewhere.
Yeah, because we don't endorse, but we do certify, and you are certifiable, my dear, because you're a little bit crazy for doing this. But look, all joking aside, it needs to be done. North Carolina should be a solidly Republican state. The state GOP, Watley, who ended up going national, I don't know how, lost 5 out of 6 of the statewide races last November. That's not acceptable.
Right. So we've heard a lot of excuses of why that our lead candidate for governor was abysmal. You hear this a lot across the state. I'm sorry. When that's the nominee for the party, that's the horse you're backing. And if you don't back that horse, what are you doing, North Carolina GNC or GOP, RNC, whomever? The GOP needs to back the horse, that primary candidate, no matter what. Is the person that you should be supporting, is the person that you should drag over the finish line. The abandonment of that lead really hurt every other state race. AG was the most painful. That was our the very best attorney general candidate we've had in 100 years in North Carolina, in Dan Bishop, and he lost, and there was no support from the party for him. We also lost the supermajority at the General Assembly, and we've been suffering under insufferable Democrat government here under the governor Roy Cooper, now Josh Stein, who won against Mark Robinson. But without the supermajority, there is no more stopgap, right?
Yeah.
So the supermajority can override a veto of a ridiculous veto, and then we can get what we want passed. But without that supermajority, there is no power there. And we also, Timbo, we also lost the Republican conservative seat on the state Supreme Court. So 3 out of all of those things would have been a stopgap to keep an errant, runaway, arrogant leftist government out of our bedrooms, out of our lives, out of our pocketbooks, out of our schools, out of our kitchens. And yet that's what we've done in North Carolina. So the people, the groundswell from the conservatives is just sweeping across the state. You can see that with the conventions that just took place starting on Saturday. I went to 2 on Saturday. Conservatives have taken over those counties. Last night, a conservative crowd took over Wake County. There are many, many more coming throughout the state, and conservatives are rising up.
And it's not just here in the United States, it's worldwide. People were a little bit upset that reform didn't do better in the elections a few months ago in the United Kingdom, although Nigel Farage is in a better place than he ever could have been. People were really upset that Alternative for Germany didn't take the top spot in last Sunday or 2 Sundays ago's national elections. And it's fantastic because what people are seeing is exactly what we saw at the president's joint congressional address on Tuesday night. People are seeing these Democrats, they're seeing these Labor Party, they're seeing the GDP party in Germany, they're seeing these globalists for who they are. That was the most despicable, disgraceful display I've ever seen from Democrats on Tuesday night. But getting back to North Carolina for just a quick second, you said the magic word, primaries. And that's exactly why Brooke and I founded MAGA Institute back in 2019 to get people to focus on the primaries. If you're not voting in the primary, you're not voting. If you're waiting until the general election to get interested in politics, you've missed the boat. If you're complaining because you don't like the Republican candidates, it's nobody's fault but your own. Not only vote in the primary, but organize for the primary. Get your family and friends that are conservative to the primaries. Run for office yourself if you want, like Brooke is doing. If that's not your calling, help somebody like Brooke. Help a good conservative get elected. It's the primary where the battle is because it's GOPE versus we the people. It's the America First MAGA crowd versus the establishment. And if we don't prevail in the primary, there's no point in even having a Republican in office because a GOPE establishment Republican is no better than a Democrat.
It's true. I'm calling them, rather than rhinos nowadays, I'm calling them undocumented Democrats because that's their behavior. That's what they do. That's who they are. You know, we are only here to win elections. You have to start way back before the primary. The primary election, oftentimes when I was standing out in front running, you know, electioneering for my own race for Congress, people would say, "Oh, I'm only here to vote for the Trump endorsed candidate." Well, Trump hadn't endorsed all the races. So
Right.
maybe you were going to vote for one or two people, because if you were looking only for a Trump endorsed candidate, you were looking in the wrong place. That's what happens in the general election. And so the primary is your responsibility or your county's responsibility or your precinct responsibility, that you get together with other like-minded grassroots conservative Republicans. You choose whom you're interested in. Nobody's going to endorse from the party level because that's not what the party does, but you can read about it. We teach you how to do that at MAGA Institute. I'm interested, as NC GOP state chair, teaching the electorate how to vet the candidates prior to the primary. Once the primary has occurred, let me just reiterate, we cannot stress this enough. That's the horse you're backing, Republican Party. So do it beforehand and do it with like-minded other people. Get the right conservative. Seek them out. Find them. Interview them. Go to their forums, watch their videos, learn who they are. That's what vetting is all about. Go to opensecrets.org, go to Open the Books, or figure it all out where their money is coming from. You will know who they are backing, who's backing them. You'll know how they will vote in the future. If you see somebody who's got a Pfizer $10,000 donation in their campaign, they're not going to vote for your medical freedom. They're going to vote against your medical freedom. So you got to look at those things. We teach you how to do that at MAGA Institute, and I will instill all of those qualities through the party, through the precinct organization that we're going to install in North Carolina GOP.
And you just said the other magic word, precincts. People think that their vote might not matter getting involved. It absolutely does. There are about 400,000 spots available nationwide at the national and state party. 400,000 opportunities to participate. And guess what, Brooke? There's about 100,000 globalists. I don't call them rhinos because they're not Republicans in name only. They're actual Republicans. The Republicans have never been conservatives. So there's about 100,000 establishment Republicans. There's about 100,000 MAGA America First patriots now, but there's 200,000 seats open. Your precinct probably has seats open. Grab 10 friends and go and join and take over that precinct. It can be done, and it can be done fast.
That's
My
right.
friend Joe Powers in Rhode Island, he and his vice chair, it's actually the vice chair in Rhode Island is called the chair of chairs because he's responsible for overseeing all the county chairs. They took over the entire Rhode Island GOP in one election cycle. Now, granted, Rhode Island's a small state, but that's proof of concept. It can be done. You show up at the precincts with your friends on the precinct election night. You all vote for each other. Boom, you've taken over that precinct. You do that in a few more precincts. Boom, you take over your county. You do that in a few counties, you can take over your state. Probably can't be done in one election cycle like it was in Rhode Island, but it can be done, and it can be done quickly.
I think it's being done in North Carolina. Now, some of the counties here have their precinct organization meeting, is what it's called. Precinct organization meeting, where they all get together, and they did this last night in Wake. and we're doing it at our county on March 15th, and other counties do it this way too. Some have a precinct organization meeting prior to their county convention, some back to back them, and that's okay too. Just be sure to get there. Register online if you need to. Some counties don't require that. Take a look at your county Republican Party to learn about the precinct organization or your precinct meeting or your precinct election, whatever. Look for the word precinct and see what they're calling it. And then get out there, because March and April are the months for county conventions. April for us is the district convention, and then the summer is the state convention. Once you're a delegate, at least for my race, once you're a delegate at the county convention, you can be moved up to state, but you're going to have a hard time getting to state convention and being a delegate at state if you're not already a county Republican delegate. So there's a process. You need to follow that process. Learn what your process is and take advantage of it, because we've been sitting on the sidelines way too long. We can see that the party has changed. The party is still changing. Trump has brought so many new people back to the Republican Party, and we have low-hanging fruit. We should be in North Carolina. There are more unaffiliateds than there are Republicans for now. That will change. That is the low-hanging fruit. Those that are MAGA, those that are America First, those that have voted for Trump and have volunteered all along during the Trump Force 47 campaign, those are your new Republicans. They will help you move the meter, and they will help you shape your state, and we will change this country.
And if you can't find anything online, if you can't find any information about your precinct or the organization or where and when meetings are, call your state rep. Your state rep's office is going to be your best source for that information if it's not publicly available where you are. Because we know, Brooke, sometimes they like to, play the old shell game. Talking about playing games, we could talk all night about Tuesday night, but I just have to commend the president for one of the most brilliant stratagems I've ever seen a president use in a joint session of Congress. He totally set the Democrats up, backed him into a corner, and they had nowhere to go except either stand and cheer him and anger their donors, or do what they did, sit there, suck their teeth, and seethe. He said, "There's nothing I can do. I've been here 5 times. There's nothing I could do to make these Democrats happy. They'll never stand and cheer for anything I say. I could get the cure for the most dangerous disease, a disease that wipes out entire nations, and they would still sit there." And then he proceeded, boom, 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 boom. Give me the executive order to rename the wildlife refuge in Galveston after Jocelyn Ungary, while her mother and sister were up there. Talking about the Lake and Riley Act, giving the young man his commission to West Point, the U.S. Military Academy. And last but not least, they couldn't even, although I think there was one Democrat that stood for DJ Daniel, lovely 13-year-old young man who just dreams of being a police officer. And Sean Curran came out, director of the Secret Service, and President Trump had Sean Curran make DJ Daniels. I get choked up because my brother had leukemia at DJ's age, made him an honorary Secret Service agent. DJ threw his arms around Sean, and it was a genuine, spontaneous gesture. Funny, I never saw any children throwing their arms around sniffing Pedo Joe, but that's another issue. But the Democrats couldn't even cheer. They couldn't even cheer a 13-year-old boy fighting cancer being made an honorary Secret Service agent. That's how miserable they are. And I think it's fantastic for us because X and Insta and TikTok have been filled with Democrats saying, bye-bye. Walk Away has gotten over 5,000 new followers in the last 3 days, Brooke.
Wow. And that's what I'm talking about. That's the low-hanging fruit. They did it to themselves. They've nailed their own coffin shut. This is the time we will grow this party. We will be America First across this country. They just showed their butts on Tuesday night. And it's just really, really awesome to see. What was really awful was watching Al Green stand up and shake his cane. I kind of thought we were going to have a caning moment.
I was thinking about that. Pinckney back in the Senate.
Yeah, Stewart and Pinckney. And I was worried that was coming. But luckily, J.D. Vance, who is, Capito, is that what you call it? Capito?
No, he's president of the Senate.
I know, but I mean, he was Trump's henchman that day. That was amazing that he's like, get him out of here.
Yeah.
That was great. So, the adults are back in charge, and that's the most encouraging thing. There have been so many crazy times going through the Biden administration that is so refreshing to see President Trump and Vice President Vance take power and take control and really help us as a nation.
It is, and we're all enjoying it. We're all celebrating. We're all doing the touchdown dance and spiking the football, but that's not all we need to do. We need to take a lesson from the president and get busy. He's accomplished more in the first 60 days than any other administration in American history. Think about that. He's done more, accomplished more in 60 days than any other president. And that's what we need to be doing. Don't just celebrate and say, yeah, we won, because we haven't won anything yet. We have to fundamentally transform Washington, D.C. It was fundamentally transformed on us over the last 60 decades, but particularly over 12 of the last 16 years. We need to fundamentally transform that town. That's what Elon is doing with Doge. That's what the cabinet secretaries are doing. That's what our president's doing. And that's what we need each of you to do in your sphere of influence, your hometown, your GOP precinct, your county, your state. So, Brooke, hats off to you. We're four square behind you and look forward to more updates as the race gets nearer.
Thank you.
Right now, we've got another fighter, attorney extraordinaire, our friend Lee Dundas. Lee is going to be talking tonight about something very troubling, but something that needs to be discussed. This is a fight that needs to be fought, and we're going to finish off with some good things as well. But first, to discuss an horrific legal case is attorney Lee Dundas. Lee, welcome to the MAGA Institute podcast.
Welcome back.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. It's an honor to be here. How long do we have today? I forget what we're running here.
Brooke is out in 15 minutes because she's got a convention to go to tonight, but you and I can talk for a little bit after that.
Sounds good.
So, Lee, what is this case?
Well, as we all start to talk at the same time, it's a pretty gnarly case. It involves a multi-state setup at this point. Florida and Michigan. Little girl was born to a married couple up in Michigan, and they got divorced when the kid was about 17 months old. As divorced couples are wont to do, mother ends up with full custody, but dad will come into town every once in a while, grab the kid from mom, take his kid for his weekend visitation. And his preferred choice of venue for that was his mother's house. His own mother, the paternal grandmother, still had a house in that town. And that might have been okay, except for the fact that the mom had remarried a convicted sex offender who was already on the Michigan State Registry for having admitted to raping a wheelchair-bound, brain-injured, handicapped child for a 2-year spree, vaginally and orally raping her from the ages of 13 to 15. And he confessed to that crime to detectives. So we know without a doubt that that actually occurred. And this policeman father of this child, instead of keeping his toddler or preschool age daughter the heck away from sex offenders in the family, decided, yeah, this is the perfect place to go take my kid every 2 weeks and have visitation. Kid gets to be about 4.5 years old and decides to disclose some of what's been going on at grandma and grandpa's house. And she tells her mom that basically every other weekend when she goes to visit dad, the two men, the step grandfather sex offender and her biological policeman father, go downstairs into the basement with her and essentially take turns with her. Pretty egregious accusations. If you want to read about them in detail, there's a hyperlink to the felony complaint filed by the Michigan State Attorney General's office on my website. But long story short, and it is a very long story, it's a 10-year saga. Eventually, the mother gets a law enforcement agency, which is actually the Attorney General of Michigan and the Michigan State Police, to get a search warrant. They execute the search warrant. Michigan State Police go downstairs into the sex offender's basement where the kid says she was penetrated and raped by daddy, the policeman, and the sex offender grandpa. And lo and behold, they swing their lights around and they find not one or two, but 6 different seminal fluid stains on the carpet that are right around the perimeter of this little girl's bed in the sex offender's basement, which begs its own question. I don't know how it works in your states, but in California, when you're a sex offender on the registry, You're not supposed to be able to trick out your basement to looking like a little kid's Toys R Us showroom. You know, you're not supposed to have little kid clothes and dollies and beds. And anyway, I digress. Michigan State Police cuts out the carpet, throws the evidence tags down, sends the swatches of carpet off to the forensic lab, comes back a few weeks later, at least 160 septillion times more likely if it, meaning the seminal fluid stain, originated from the biological policeman father of this 4-year-old girl than if it originated from any other unrelated unknown contributors on the planet. Brooke and Timothy, I had to look up a septillion. Math is not my strong suit. And you will be shocked if you're remotely like me to learn that a septillion is not actually 7 zeros after the number.
No.
It is 24 zeros after the number. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's
A billion is 2, a trillion is 3, sept is 7.
Yeah. So you've got 7 sets of zeros, 24
Yeah.
zeros after the 160. And as relates, vis-a-vis the other seminal fluid stain that apparently the step-grandfather likely contributed, that came back at 320 quadrillion, which is, I believe, 15 zeros. So to say it was a forensically strong case is an understatement. Based on the strength of the forensics and the DNA evidence, the Michigan State Police and AG's office seek arrest warrants on the 2 men. Grandpa's picked up in Michigan. The father, for his part, had jackrabbited a few states away down to the Sunshine State, where JSO, Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, takes him down. And as part of the warrant, they take his devices from him, all of his electronics, his phones, computers, laptops, iPads. And then the whole kit and caboodle is shoved back from Florida back to Michigan. DeSantis extradites the man. All of his electronics are sent back to Michigan, whereupon not one, but 2 different law enforcement officers start paging through the images on the cop father's phone and devices. Guess what they found?
Gee, child sexual abuse material.
Yeah, a probative CSAM material. You are spot on, my friend. First of all, they found more than 10,000 images. They were barely scratching the surface of the 10,000 images, and they already discovered naked pictures of both boys and girls that appeared to be possibly prepubescent. And we've got, these are some of my favorite quotes, quote, very young children involved in sexual acts with adults, and quote, very young children appearing to be tortured and or in bondage.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So now, mind you, they never got all the way through their analysis where they run it through the forensic system to discern if it's actually a real child and not AI, or an Asian girl who's 4'11" and 80 pounds and just AAA, breast size. But based on the fact that these 2 law enforcement officers, they didn't say teenagers or it looked like, they said, yeah, very young children. Like, I'm guessing had they finished their analysis, it would have been dead to rights CSAM, aka child pornography images. But at that point, one of the assistant male prosecutors in Michigan was found to have dated a victim in an adult victim in an unrelated case. And Dana Nessel's office, the AG, is like, yeah, we don't want any of his caseload anymore because it'll be open season with the defense attorneys taking pot shots at us. So we're just going to dismiss all of this man's cases, including little Amy. It's a pseudonym I'm using, but little Amy, the 4-year-old child's case. So that renders dad and step grandpa are free men. They had been held without bond for a few months. The judge denied bail. They were actually held no bail. But at this point, they have to be released. They both moved back down to Florida. Dad gets, because you just can't make this stuff up, he gets a job working as a school police officer for a major metropolitan area. He was actually already employed there before his arrest. They take him back, and then they promote him into being the acting police chief of this county school district, where I'm sure he likely had unfettered access to dozens, if not hundreds or potentially thousands of school children and their records. Oh, that girl's a runaway. Oh, she's vulnerable. Oh, she already accused a cousin of raping her. That's the exact person you want in that post. And
Lee, how the hell does this happen? You cannot sign up to lead your child's class on a zoo trip unless you go through a background check, and it's the registry they search. How the hell can this happen? How can he be employed by a school district? Does Florida not participate in this nationwide database?
Good questions all, my friend. Good questions all. Here's something for kicks and giggles. The AG's office doesn't just release the dudes. They order the guys who were in the middle of looking at the electronics of this school police officer cop father, who's already been accused of child rape, and probable production of child pornography manufacturing, which I'll get to in a second. They ordered the guys looking at these photos and the CSAM evidence to stand down. I'm going to read you a depo transcript from one of the law enforcement officers. I was about to document this. That's how close the timeline was. And then the Assistant Attorney General's misconduct came to light. So I was quickly advised by, well, I couldn't tell you who it was, but both the AG and the Michigan State Police, do not do anything else with this case. Just freeze it. So it stayed frozen for a while, but then we still have the devices that the images were found on. And then I received guidance from our detective command staff, just dispose of it. Like when I say dispose of it, I don't mean literally throw it in the trash, but release it back to the suspect. If it's nothing that was going to be charged on or prosecuted, just release it. Don't even worry about detailing what was in it. So you heard me correct. The AG and the Michigan State Police command detective staff order the minions who are busy looking at what appear to be child pornography photos involving sexual assault by adults, torture, and bondage by a school police officer. They haven't even done the majority of the review. They have no idea if the girl who alleged rape at the hands of her father actually was on these images, nor do they know, Timothy, to your point, if this man's new wife's other children were on here, nor do they know. I would have been lit if I was one of the parents on the PT in the school district. If any of the kids in this school district happened to have images that were on his phone. Why? Well, because the Michigan State Attorney General in her esteemed judgment decided to just freeze the review of all of that and give it back to the alleged cop rapist father.
So wait a second. Did I hear you correctly? He's remarried to a woman who has children of her own?
Yep.
Did she know about this?
I am given to understand she did.
Then we need to dig into her past.
Oh, her past and the cop father's is pretty illustrative. If you go fishing around Craigslist, you will see they were both sexual swingers, and they were putting full-on ads on Craigslist in Miami, Gainesville, Boynton Beach, where this cop father, while he was working as a cop, was bragging about his you-know-what size you-know-what, and that his wife is bi, he's straight, and they would like a threesome because his wife wants a big you-know. It's, yeah. Yeah, there's no shortage of dirt there. So anyway, but I digress again. So the dad decides now that he's a free man, he's going to make a motion in front of the Alachua County Gainesville judges down in Florida to get sole physical custody of his daughter. He pulls in a dinosaur of a judge, a relic. I mean, this guy is straight out of the dark ages. Presiding judge, the Honorable James P. Nylon, Nilon, if you want to Google him. And this man orders all of the trauma-informed therapists the kid's getting help from up in Michigan off the case. She's got people working on her case who are the associate dean at U of Michigan, Ann Arbor in social work. Can't have any of those qualified people working. He assigns his own MFCC therapists who are horrible. He doesn't allow the therapist on the case to discuss the kid's past sexual abuse. So when she tries to talk about it in session, the therapist literally says, no, 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 little girl. And your truth is your father never hurt you. You were never hurt. This kid is spun out so violently within a few months. She is now rendered suicidal, probably as a proximate result of the judge's aberrated orders. And she is literally going into the bathroom every night and praying to God that her mother will kill her so she can start a new life. She actually has the guts to tell the judge on the record at a hearing in December of 2020 that she wants to die and that she feels worthless, quote unquote worthless, because when she starts to say something in her therapy session, the therapist says, no, 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 and runs roughshod over the top of what she's trying to say. At no point does this judge go, yeah, you're probably feeling suicidal because I ordered the therapist not to let you talk about your past sexual abuse. He just says, oh, really? Is that what the therapist is saying to you? I'm so sorry you're feeling that way today. And then get this, guys, in that same hearing, the child says, the judge goes, anything else you want to tell me? And she goes, yes. My father touched me in my private places. It felt uncomfortable. He hurt me. He looks like a nice man, but he's not nice when he gets me alone behind closed doors. And, direct quote, sometimes he makes me sometimes he makes me take my clothes off and videotapes me with his cell phone dancing. So now we don't just have images on the man's devices. We have on the record testimony from a third grader now, age 9, that from the time she was a little toddler preschooler, her father was making her dance naked and taking video images of this. And what does this mandated reporter of a judge do? Seals the record, So nobody can find out about any of this, including the fact that the kid's now suicidal, courtesy of his earlier orders to not let her talk about her abuse. And then he orders one of the doctors on her case in a separate on the record session when she's going, I'm a mandated reporter. Should I report this abuse that kid's trying to talk about, though I'm trying to not let her talk about because you ordered me not to? And he goes, yeah, I would say it's appropriate for you to not inform the state authorities as a mandatory reporter. It is a felony in the state of Florida when you're a judge, a therapist, a cop, a teacher, to not report felony child sexual abuse or suspected child abuse. And I'm sure the judge has some sort of legal trapdoor exception that allows him to do what he did. But they're playing with fire. Then it gets worse.
Is this Hunter's illegitimate brother, allegedly?
You gotta wonder. You gotta wonder. He fines the mother $250,000, $237,629 on his last day on the bench for what, you might ask? For having gotten her kid therapy after the kid was rendered suicidal by his earlier orders, and for the audacious act of having cooperated with an ongoing Attorney General's state police investigation that yielded the rock solid DNA evidence I told you about, and 10,000 photos, some of which apparently involved children being sexually assaulted by adults, tortured and or in bondage. Then he goes, catch, and he gives the case to his good buddy, Judge Groeb, Groeb, who used to be a state prosecutor, who also used to represent Florida Department of Law Enforcement, and who was born in Michigan. But now he's also an Alachua County family judge, and he continues Nylon's work. He says, I 100% agree with my predecessor. We are not going to allow the alleged evidence of sexual molestation to become a feature of this child custody trial. And he orders all of that evidence out, and then he doesn't even let the girl testify as to which parent she wants to live with. And she's almost 14 now. That happens January 6th and 7th. They have the custody hearing. And after one full day of hearing all of the father's testimony and from all of the dad's witnesses, he literally summarily rules Tuesday morning, January 7th, 50-50 custody, unsupervised, back to the dad immediately. Mom brings her kid into the state of Florida on Valentine's, February 14th, for the first long weekend, unsupervised with Daddy Bear. Florida DCF calls the mom. They say, hey, we have a report. I'm sure one of the teachers or somebody in this kid's universe was like, yeah, this is a problem. We have a report. You need to bring your kid into the headquarters for DCF, Department of Child and Family. The mother's like, okay, fine. She drives over to DCF. They take her kid in a room. The DCF worker goes, yeah, I'm going to bring in a passing patrolman to interview you. Now, mind you, the allegations are this kid was raped by whom? A Florida cop. Who do they bring in to do the interview? A Florida cop who's the same height, same weight, same hair color, same eye color, same age, same sex as her alleged cop rapist father. And by the way, because he's a patrolman that they dragged off the street, he has zero specialized training in doing forensic interviews or talking to kid abuse survivors or rape victims. So he takes this girl in a room. Kid is triggered out of her freaking gourd. She tries to disclose the abuse. She says something, you guys, like, yeah, if I go back to my dad this weekend, I'll probably be a dead man walking, because he had often threatened to kill her, she disclosed, allegedly. And now she's disclosed. So this cop hears her talking about a fear of homicide. And what he hears, he transmutes it into being, oh, you're suicidal, little girl. I'm going to Baker Act commit you. He institutes a 72-hour lockdown psych hold. This girl is perp walked out the back of the DCF building. This is her reward for coming in and disclosing abuse by a sitting Florida cop. Perp walked out the back of the building, thrown into the back of the guy's police cruiser where you put all the violent criminals with the metal cage and no door handles, driven across town. Perp walked back out of the police car and into a lockdown psych ward that was so darn violent. This girl was incarcerated from Friday night at 5 p.m. until Tuesday midday. And she saw 8 and 10 and 12-year-olds trying to beat up the staff. One of the kids was body punching, kidney punching a staff worker so bad, 3 adult male techs had to drag the kid off the employee in this lockdown psych ward. And then, story's not quite done. DCF, before they've even done a proper interview, and they just decided to lock her up as her reward, which was totally unconstitutional and probably a lawsuit would lie for it, picks up the phone. They haven't even gotten the girl's side of the story. Picks up the phone, calls the alleged rapist's father that night, and goes, hey, guess where your kid is? So guess who shows up? in the middle of the lockdown psych ward the next day. The alleged rapist father telling the psych ward, oh, the Department of Child and Family is trying to arrange a safety release of my child for her own safety back into my arms. Psych ward's like, yeah, I don't think so, Scooter. And he's like, well, can I at least get her medical records? Because of course he wants to see what she's saying, right? Get out in front of it probably. And they're like, yeah, no dice. And then DCF talks to the mom, and the mom's like, so are you going to do the interview when the kid gets out of lockdown? And they're like, we don't even know if or when we're going to do this interview. And then the mom goes, well, I've heard from the psych ward that in these types of cases, you can do like a no contact order or some sort of judicial motion to keep my kid safe while you're investigating. You know what the DCF worker said, Timothy? We don't do no contact orders. And the mom's like, how in the hell do you keep kids who are allegedly being abused in your state safe during the pendency of your DCF or criminal investigation if you can't get them out of the clutches of the parent on some sort of temporary restraining order, no contact order? And they're like, yeah, our department doesn't do that.
It leaves a citizen no option but self-help.
Well, that's not quite where we are. What we're asking the good-hearted citizens to do is to blow the hell up the phones and emails of DeSantis, the Attorney General, John Gard, and the head of the Department of Child and Family. And I will say this, as aberrated and awful as this case is, and though it looks like there might be a multi-state conspiracy between Florida and Michigan at the highest levels, the judges, the AG's offices who are ordering the destruction of evidence, give it back to the suspect, even though it's got CSAM on it, alleged kiddie porn. Oh, we're going to have Florida law judges. Don't even let this kid testify about her child pornography manufacturing by her cop rapist father, alleged cop rapist father. It looks kind of like a multi-state conspiracy. I will say this. I believe DeSantis and John Gard, the AG now, and the head of their DCF are good people who actually care about the kids in their state and are actually tough on crime in many cases. I just think the disconnect is these people don't know what their staff way down the food chain are actually doing and how ham-fistedly badly their staff have handled this. So what I am asking people who care about this to do is to go to my website, leighdundas.com. By the way, guys, my mother gave me extra letters, LEIGHDUNDAS.com. Go to the child abuse page and go to the very bottom where you will see all of the crime scene photos, like the ones I already held up. And right above these photos, it says two things. If you go to the child abuse page, sign up to stay involved, sign up, because we're probably going to be doing a rally in Florida soon. And if you go to the bottom of that page, guys, you'll be able to see it at the bottom, right above the pictures. Yeah, you're getting there. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Right there, right there. So stay informed, sign up here. And right above that sign up block, you'll see your homework, and you'll see in the blue writing four different email addresses for DeSantis, John Gard, the AG, DCF, etc. And I am asking you to send emails and or make phone calls or both to these people this week and let them know your thoughts about how this case has been handled. And if you can't get your thoughts together, make it easy. Just block and copy the summary I did right above there and drop it into an email and hit send and say, this is not okay, because it ain't okay. In no way.
Yeah, this needs to be all over TikTok, all over Insta, all over X, all over Facebook. This whole case is disgusting. First of all, I don't know how a father can sexually abuse one of his children. I don't know how an adult, male or female, can sexually abuse a child in any context, but especially a parent. It's reprehensible. Now, why isn't FBI involved? We have two different states. We have crossing state lines. This is well within FBI's jurisdiction.
Yeah, well, great minds run in the same direction. My sincere hope is that DOJ and FBI will both pick up this case. I know Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and
yeah, let's hit Pam. She's the former Florida AG.
Yep, exactly. Well, I can neither confirm nor deny if they've been alerted, but it certainly wouldn't hurt for other people to weigh in here. So yeah, you've heard my thoughts. I do believe this is potentially a multi-state conspiracy. Everybody's innocent until proven guilty. We can't prove that these guys did what the kids said. So I keep saying alleged.
No, but the forensic evidence doesn't lie.
The forensics are pretty strong, to your point, along with the pictures. Hello, I was briefly at a prosecutor's office in 1994 where we, took felony jury trial cases in front of a jury of 12. And the way this goes when you have a case like this, as you might imagine, is you walk into the water cooler in the lunchroom, and your fellow prosecutor comes out and goes, hey, I got the forensics back on my rape case. And you're like, yeah, what'd they say? And they hold up the lab report and you see 160 with 24 zeros after it. And you're like, fist bump, you got this. You could have a gang of baboons on your freaking jury. You could have kindergartners on your jury. You're going to win it. Everybody knows what DNA evidence is. Everybody knows what a picture of kiddie porn looks like. Even the Supreme Court standard on pornography is we'll know it when we see it. Like, hello, right? But yet these men are walking free today. And it begs the question, why? And why has so much time and money been invested across 2 states, silencing this kid over and over again, even not letting her talk to her mother and her therapist? What are you so scared of having come out of this kid's mouth? Even DCF didn't do a proper interview. They threw in a lockdown psych ward to silence her again. And it's like, you gotta wonder why. Why are you so scared of letting this, as sad as this case is, millions of kids are getting raped across America right now by their parents, their uncles, people on the street. It's sad, but why is so much firepower from the very highest levels of both state being directed on keeping this one child zipped and shushed?
Well, I think this whole thing is satanic. I'm not being hyperbolic. I think that demons are in the world actively working against good people. And it's just, folks, we got to get busy. Blow up X, blow up Insta, blow up your socials, contact Pam Bondi, contact Cash Patel, tag in all the people, send those emails on Lee's website, leedundas.com.
Yeah. Thank you. Can I say another few words about something that's not so stomach-churningly nauseating?
Well, I was going to say, let's go from the disgusting to the sublime here. Let's talk about people's health and what they can do to now that we all feel so horrible, Lee, let's talk about how we could feel a little bit better.
Let's give some emotional whiplash to the audience and end on a high note, shall we? Well, yeah, I don't know if you know this, but I've spent the last 12 years busting child brothels in Asia, working to gather intel on the Yakuza mafia that are running the kids through these brothels, sitting on congressional committees I was appointed to by the head of the House Foreign Affairs Committee to fight trafficking here in America, literally going into Camp Pendleton to train military police and other cops how to not do what all the cops have done on this case. And all of that, for the most part, certainly in the last more than half decade, I have done pro bono. Like, I'm not charging the mom and the kid on this case. They're $2 million into a legal fight with the ex-husband. I'm just doing what I do from outside the square box and really trying to make it go right. But the way I do that, because I'm not a trust fund baby, my mother was a homemaker, my daddy was an auto mechanic, auto body shop guy. There's no trust fund at the end of my rainbow. Is, I work, and my husband and I have a stem cell company. That's what we were doing right up until March of 2020. And if you don't know what stem cells are, it's like one of the pastors I know calls it a celestial technology. It is basically like a blank slate cell. And when it grows up in your body, it can become anything. So it's like you're talking to your 5-year-old and you're like, hey, honey, when you grow up, you could be a fireman or a cop or a lawyer or a doctor. And as long as the kid's got a brain and all 4 limbs, he could probably be any of those things, right? Such as the stem cell. You put the stem cell in the body and it kind of looks around and it goes, this lady doesn't have any cartilage left in her knee because she was a professional dancer and now she's bone on bone. Or you put it in a guy's shoulder who's a pro tennis player and they're like, oh, he tore his rotator cuff. Let's get to work mending that. And it's really amazing stuff. So there's nasty stem cells, and those are the ones that Planned Parenthood deals in, aborted fetal tissue. We don't do that. You can't even legally get that in America, praise God. But there's also other sources of stem cells. So umbilical cord and placentas are also very high in stem cell. And Tim, for you and all your listeners who have a Y chromosome, I'll give you the short and dirty on this.
Well, I'm a biologist, so you know who you're talking to.
Then I'll give it, where I'm going, but maybe some of your listeners are not so well educated. So after the 9 months, after we get done, incubating y'all's babies, we give birth to the baby. That's the exciting part. Nobody really pays attention to what happens afterward. What happens afterward is the umbilical cord comes out, because we don't really need that anymore. It's not like mommy is going around lassoing her kid when he's running across the street with the umbilical cord. And the placenta comes out again, because this is not like a liver. You don't get to keep it for the next 80 years. And it used to be the hospitals would just take that and throw it in the medical waste bin because nobody needs it anymore. And then
Except for Marina Abramovich, who grills it up and serves it to her guests.
allegedly, yes. So,
Allegedly.
so anyway, so at some point, the doctors got wise and they're like, hey, this is a really rich source of stem cells. Maybe instead of dumping it in the trash, we should start harvesting the stem cells. So the stem cell that we use comes from umbilical cords. And it does amazing stuff. We've been putting it in people's bodies since 2016. We had pro football players, bone on bone knees, couldn't even go up a hill to go hunting or play basketball with their kids. And they're out there hiking Machu Picchu, dancing up a storm with their wives. Works very, very well. And if you haven't seen this article yet, this was April 2nd, ABC News. So this is not Mother Earth, Earthy Crunchy, nobody knows my name. This is a paralyzed quadriplegic in San Diego. He'd been paralyzed for over 7 years, I want to say. He took a header off his surfboard. They did some stem cell on his spinal cord, and you got mainstream media in there 8 months ago, 6 months ago, something like that, videotaping this man walking around his pool deck with a cane, not even a walker. So again, if they've got quadriplegics who are up and vertical, they're reversing blindness or reversing diabetes, and they're doing amazing stuff with stem cell right now. I'm not saying that if you come get stem cell from my husband's office, you will be up and vertical. I will say we treated a quadriplegic in November who's already getting some amazing results, but obviously bodies are different, results vary, yada, yada, yada. But if you're looking at a knee replacement or a shoulder or something that's not working in your body and you're thinking you don't want to go under the knife, go to the Healthy Living page on my website and leadendist.com, click on the Healthy Living tab, sign up to learn more about stem cells. We'll reach out to you. And the other thing that is really, really amazing is this oxygen water. Talk about celestial technology. You know this being a biologist, my friend. Disease does not do well in a very well oxygenated body. You want to keep disease down, you want your oxygen up. You want disease to flourish, go low oxygen. Wear 5 masks, don't breathe very well, and you will have a prime sort of candidate for disease to flourish. So they figured out how to kind of put a hyperbaric chamber in a glass of water. The oxygen water is called Patriox water. And if you go onto the website, it's pretty amazing. And this is a before and after. We're going old school. This is a woman's blood before she drank the water. 60-year-old woman's blood. It looks like the Hawaiian Island chain. This is, as a biologist, not healthy blood. You would agree, Timothy?
Yeah, that's kind of sludgy blood. That's not good.
Not good. You don't need Judy Mikovits to tell you this. Guys, the long and short of it is your blood on a microscope slide should not look like the Hawaiian Island chain. This is the same woman 2 minutes after drinking the oxygen water. That is her blood now. Is that a healthier looking blood? What would you say, Timothy?
That's unbelievable. That's blood like it's supposed to look.
Yeah. The really unbelievable thing, and they've got, a gel you can put on your face, and they've got guys with precancerous dark spots. It just magic erases it away. It's pretty amazing. But this was a woman in Italy. She cut off the tip of her thumb. I don't know what she did, but it's pretty nasty, as you can tell. And she went to the University of Italy at Milan, and they were like, ew, that's some nasty stuff. We're going to throw some of this oxygen water in the bandage in the hopes that it'll speed up the healing process. Fast forward a bit. This is her thumb when they take the bandage off. It regrew her freaking thumb.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, if you've ever been to 3rd or 6th or 9th grade science class, the first thing Mr. Jones always said is, hey guys, be careful not to cut your thumb off when you're in wood shop next door, because we are not starfish or salamanders. We don't regrow limbs once we cut them off. And yet, that's what happened after putting oxygen water on it. And what the University of Italy said is apparently when they went to figure out what had actually gone on in this lady's thumb, what they realized is the high level of oxygenation reactivated a gene that is usually only active when a fetus is being, incubated and we're growing our limbs. So after we're born, we don't need to grow limbs anymore. That gene goes dormant. But apparently the high oxygenated state reactivated it, and it regrew part of this woman's thumb. And they've realized this can happen as long as there's no scar tissue formed yet. So pretty amazing stuff. I am not saying that it cures cancer, but I am saying that in Hungary, they will bathe you in the water for an hour a day and make you drink the water. And that something like 80+% of the people who walk in with go home and die of stage 4 cancer are walking out with no cancer cells detectable. FDA, FTC doesn't let you make those kinds of claims here in America, but that's what they're seeing in Europe, along with the fact that they had a 14-year-old boy from Armenia who had never spoken a word, violent, autistic, head-banging kid. And my girlfriend was there who's bringing this water to America. And she would say, "Hi, little boy," every morning when he walked into the clinic because she believes in the power of communication. And he was doing his autistic thing. A few days into this, she goes, "Hi," and uses his name. And he looks at her and he goes, "Hi." And the mother bursts into tears and she goes, "My kid, he never spoke a word. He hugged me this morning and said, 'I love you.'" This kid was speaking in full freaking sentences by the end of the week. So again, I'm not saying that'll happen for your autistic child or for your whatever is going on in your health or your family, but I am definitely saying if you're into holistic health, go to the Healthy Living page on my website, click on the Healthy Living page of leedundas.com. You can get a case of the water for yourself, and you can also check out Stem Cell if you want to learn more. It's pretty darn amazing.
You know, I can tell you this as a biologist, the Lord has given us everything we need for our bodies to heal ourselves. We just have to stop poisoning ourselves with all of these processed foods and franken meat and everything else that they're trying to cram down our cake holes. And, you know, healthy eating, healthy living, stem cells, which it's, as you said, it's an undifferentiated cell. It doesn't know what it wants to grow up to be yet. And ethically sourced, which is so important. And
Ethically and unvaccinated. We have
yeah,
so before 2020, my husband and I were doing this for 5 years. It didn't matter. I mean, they obviously screened the donating mothers to make sure they didn't have AIDS and Hep C and
right.
all that jazz. But we didn't have to worry about the COVID vaccine. Since we jumped back into doing this 6 months ago, it was a big problem. We called every lab in America. We're like, "Hey, can you get us unvaccinated product?" And they're like, "Not reliably. We don't, we can't." I mean, the mother could lie to us and say she's not vaccinated, even though she is. Finally, Timothy, I found a lab and they're like, "Yeah, we can guarantee it." I'm like, "How?" They're like, "We'll give you product prior to 2021. This stuff is kept in cryopreservation. It never goes bad."
Wow.
I said, "All right." And we had a guy on who heard me talking about it on James Grunberg. Literally, this guy from Michigan, he was ready to eat his gun. He handed us his credit card. He goes, "This better work, because if it doesn't, I'm going to go home and eat my gun." And I said, "I have no problem taking your credit card because I know how well this stuff works." He went home the next day, rode his Harley. He was getting ready to sell it. He had hip problems. He couldn't get his leg over the saddle. Rode his Harley, got down on the ground, was playing with his grandkids. He had not been able to hunt, to fish, to go on a walk. He called us back a couple days later. He goes, "Dude, my only regret is I didn't do more joints. This thing is like a freaking miracle." So again, I'm not making claims, but I am saying give it some consideration, because Timothy's right. We have everything we need to heal ourselves if we stop listening to pharma, which is a bunch of criminals who've been fined for lying to the American public, and we just start using the stuff that's naturally available on this planet, you know?
Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to wrap it for today. Lee, if you could hang around a little bit later, I want to talk to you off camera. Thank you for listening to another MAGA Institute podcast. Now, you've got some homework. Remember, at the top, we said get involved in your local GOP. If you can't find out when your precinct organization meetings are, call your state rep. Get involved. Bring some friends. Take over these precinct seats to take over your precinct, to take over your county, and get active for the primaries. Primary season is coming up for the state elections next March. February and March begins primary season for the congressional races. We have to get MAGA candidates elected in the primary, in the GOP primary. If your state has an open primary, get active to get it closed. Try to get only Republicans selecting the Republican candidates. So that's job number one, get active in the GOP. Homework number two, go to leedundas.com, send those emails, tag Kash Patel, tag Pam Bondi, tag all the people involved. We've got to make them aware of this case in Michigan and Florida, what's going on. This is horrific. We need to stop it. And finally, if you're looking for a way to feel better, go to Lee's Holistic Health page on or tab on her webpage. Again, that's leighdundas.com, LEIGHDUNDAS.com, and see if there's something there that you might find of value. Also, you've seen the crawl all show long of our fantastic sponsors. We want to thank them. Go use those promo codes if they are of interest to you and if you'd like to support our work here at MAGA Institute. All right, until next time, God bless you. God bless these United States. Keep fighting the good fight. Great. Thanks for staying, Lee. Do you know Liz Crokin?